Hello, this is Paul Milligan for IC Show TV at IC 2017. Thanks for joining us at this panel discussion. Today's topic is there an AV skill shortage? I'm joined today by Graeme Massey from specialist AV recruitment company Graeme Massey, and from Will Hegan from global systems integration group AVI-SPL. Welcome, gents.
Hello. Hi, Paul.
So, kicking off, is there an AV skill shortage? Graeme, to you first.
I think without doubt there is. I mean, we've been involved in audiovisual recruitment now for just over 20 years, and obviously over that time, you know, the skills have modified, they've developed. Obviously we talk a lot about the synergy now with AV and IT. I think there are certain areas particularly where there's a shortage, and I'd suggest that that's probably in the area of AV installation particularly. We get a lot of call from integrators to recruit permanent experienced installers, whether that's in the corporate market or actually in the higher-end home market. And you tend to find that they're quite hard to find because there's not many of them, and when you do find them, they're invariably freelance. So that's a definite trend, and I'd certainly say in the area of service, particularly service engineering, very, very difficult to find engineers in that area.
So would you say it's harder to get good people now than it was 20 years ago, or is it just different?
I would say it's harder, actually. I mean, we as a specialist recruitment company, we've certainly seen a distinct increase in the use of freelancers over the past 2 to 3 years. I think if you were to look at the permanent recruitment market specific to AV, you know, there are more vacancies, quite simply, than there are people. Wow. There is no doubt about that. And that's right across the board, from systems integration through to the live event sector, and actually even video production as well. So I think the short answer to your question, is there a skill shortage? The answer is yes. I think the more interesting question is probably what are we as an industry going to do about that? Yeah, well, we'll touch on that. Let me just bring Will in. Will, would you agree there's an AV skill shortage?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a few different reasons why that is, but I think there's a general lack of people for sure, but I think there's also a lot of different demands being placed on a systems integrator now by our client base. So the convergence with IT has meant that the IT skill set needs to be far stronger than it was required.
So to work in AV now, you need to do more than you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Yeah, we're looking at specialist IT project managers within projects. And so we've been spending the last 18 months trying to skill up our existing people to make sure that we're meeting the demands of the projects. But then in addition to that, we've been looking outside of the industry and recruiting people from outside of the industry and putting them through training programs, because we haven't been able to find the number and the quality of engineers native to the market. So
you will get someone with, say, a part skill and then give them the other extra bits that they need?
So if I talk from my perspective, I'm quite commercially focused. We've been hiring sales guys from management consultancy backgrounds, from consumer electrics backgrounds, from all different types of marketplaces.
So it's quite a wide searching criteria.
Yeah, we're looking for the right people with the right aptitude to learn, and then we're investing in them as a company to bring them forward. So we're seeing a big increase of sort of the apprenticeship type schemes that we're running within AVI-SPL.
I mean, is there a danger, Graeme mentioned earlier on, that I know this was quite big in the rental and staging market, that you would give them lots of training and then they would just go off and become freelance because they could earn more money? Do you see some of that?
We haven't so far. I think we make a big deal of employee welfare within our company. So we continue to invest in their training. We continue to invest in their welfare to ensure that we have a happy workforce, and that's reflected on the quality that we can then give out to our clients.
So retention rates is something that's very evident to you guys?
We've got a very good retention rate within our engineering and our commercial division.
And Graeme, back to something you said earlier, what is there we can do about this? I mean,
what
would you put forward?
I think one of the areas that I think we could all do more of is, when you're looking at where do you find new people coming into the pro audiovisual industry, we're certainly seeing more postgraduates now express interest in actually a career in AV, whereas traditionally, if you studied sound engineering or you studied media in some shape or form, the favoured options were either to move into sound engineering in the music industry, or to actually essentially move into some form of graphics media type role, whereas we've certainly seen we've had good success in actually taking on graduates whereby they've done a 2 or 3 week assignment. We had a particular example,
like a placement.
A placement, correct, at a law firm recently, and that individual now is a successful support technician. So I think, the answer to your question, I think, is we need to reach out to more universities. We've had a lot of discussions with Infocom ourselves about how we reach out to higher education facilities. But I think it's not just that. I think it's also, as Will rightly says, looking at related industries. So we've had actual success where people have moved from an IT support background, or they've been dedicated in the broadcast sector, and they view moving into AV as more generic, so there's more options long term to build a career. So I think we're seeing people coming in from the IT sector, we're certainly seeing people coming in from the broadcast sector, and I think Will's point about apprenticeships and growing, offering apprenticeships, I think that's the key.
I mean, Will, do you have 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds in your business, or is it tend to be later 20s that you
we have a bit of a mixture. We have some people who've come out of maybe their second job, but we are also recruiting straight out of university now as well. And as I say, it's about investing in people, making sure, but also working very closely with the vendor partners that we have to make sure that we have the skills to deliver their products, but also that we're trying to steer them to align training courses in that are suitable and don't affect day-to-day business too much, and it's the way, in a sort of consumable model. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point that Will makes about particularly partnering with the vendor or the end user, and we've seen certainly a growth in people viewing roles where they're based on a particular site very much as a chosen career path. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, do you think AV suffers in a way because it is so varied in what you can do that there is it's not like accountancy where you study accountancy and you become an accountant? With AV, there's so much involved in that. There's live events, there's VC, there's audio, there's education, all requiring a lot of different skills. Does that make it difficult?
I think it does, but I actually think that's what makes it attractive as well. Again, we attended an Infocom seminar recently, and there was a PR agency, and I was asked the question, what is AV? And it struck me that quite often, in other related industries, it still doesn't have the profile that perhaps it should. And I know that there is an initiative through Infocom particularly to educate the end user, so not the end user technical manager on site, but the actual user of the technology, the stakeholders, if you like, within the company, to then determine their use of AV, so that once they understand what they can do with it, hopefully then that permeates through to develop the market.
It doesn't seem like a thing that your careers advisor would say at school. Do you want to go into AV? It doesn't seem like there's almost like an accepted path through.
It's been the AV industry is maturing from a cottage industry, a owner-run business type environment, to actually being structured in a proper corporate way, and you're seeing the emergence of some bigger companies with corporate schemes and corporate initiatives to actually develop people. So hopefully, as we go forward into the next few years, we're going to see that it has a higher profile within the market, and it's seen as more attractive to to high-performing graduates that are coming out of university.
I mean, Graeme, you mentioned earlier on, it's become a huge part of, IT is a huge part of the AV world now, whether we like it or not. That's another debate. But how do you guys, AVI-SPL, get IT skills into your business? Do you hire IT people or do you give people IT training?
So I think there's a bit of a mixture of both. But in general, when we're working with vendors such as Cisco or Microsoft, Cisco runs their training schemes, Microsoft runs their training schemes, and then there is a degree of responsibility in actual general IT understanding, network topology, those types of elements. So we have a bit of a mixed approach where we've taken people from IT backgrounds, but we've then invested a lot into the people that have been working in systems integration from an audiovisual standpoint, and giving them some IT skill sets to complement their existing skills. I think there's I think goes beyond just IT as well. I think AVI-SPL just bought VideoLink, and there's a broadcast elements in that as well. So our skill set is getting more and more diverse. And you used the analogy of an accountant earlier on. I think this industry moves very, very much faster than a traditional industry like that. I think you have to have your finger on the pulse, and you have to be looking to what's happening 5 years down the line, and not just what you're doing at the moment.
I think well, the other point to make is that if you look at the end user market, invariably AV now sits within IT. Yeah. So where you have museums, you have universities, you have service owner organisations, invariably AV now sits firmly within IT. So the point I'm making is that I think you'll see that. I mean, Will's point is absolutely spot on in terms of the job as an AV technician alone, if we just use that as one example, is now an amalgamation of good understanding of IT in terms of support, understanding of networking, definitely in some form of video understanding in terms of the use of video is increasing, and certainly mirrored on top of all of that is this area of live events. Yeah. So you've got a kind of a tech. There's a real hybrid of understands AV integration, but also understands live events. Yeah. That is where I see more technicians moving long term. Yeah. So they become a hybrid essentially of AV and IT.
I mean, was there some resistance in the past? It's a bit similar to the freelance thing where you go freelance, you earn more money. If you have an person with lots of IT skills, Microsoft, Cisco certified, is there the financial incentive there to learn AV? Probably not. Is that still the case? Is there still some resistance maybe?
I think there's such a big crossover now that
or is it just a network product, so you don't really care?
Well, I mean, the reality is that AV forms part of most of the big corporates now see it as part of their global communication strategy. So it's not a small department within a business anymore. It forms part of a larger picture within how that company is going to work, so their workplace strategy, their communication strategy, and it forms a vital part of it. And so people with the right skill sets can help us deliver that. Sure, they're going to place a premium on what they can earn within that, and the more demand that's placed on it in the industry, and the lack of that skill set, it's going to make them all the more in demand and all the more valuable to the people that do employ them. So,
I mean, to wrap up, is there something you think Infocom isn't doing that it should be doing, or do you think Infocom is kind of trying its best in this regard to try and skill up the industry?
To me, I think Infocom are doing a good job of adapting what their curriculum is set and bringing the latest trends into their training programs. So again, I mean, we follow. We're a Infocom Apex partner, so we're fully invested with those guys, and the reason we are is because we think they've got a pretty good vision of what's happening in the future.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I mean, we've been members of Infocom corporate members of Infocom for many, many years, and I think I think the CTS accreditation is very desirable. People that we see with no AV experience that are looking to come into the industry value it as an accreditation. I think people within it certainly value the impact it can have by having that accreditation on your CV, assist you in building a career. I think essentially what we could all do, and it was my first point, is certainly to make AV more, shall we say, more illustrate AV to higher education facilities as a career of choice, as opposed to something that people fall into.
Sure. Absolutely. That seems like a perfect particular point to end on. So thank you, Graeme. Thank you, Will. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.